Good evening and welcome to a special edition of the Marty Heiser Show. We are incredibly privileged this evening to have in our studio Martha Dean, the Honorable Mayor Mark Boughton, and Joe Visconti. All three of these individuals are running for the Republican nomination to be the next governor of the state of Connecticut. Generally speaking, if you tuned into this show in the past, you realize that as a whole, we're not too pleased with the direction that our state seems to be going in. I did a little research. Tax Freedom Day, Connecticut is dead last out of all 50 states. You and your hardworking family have to get up every morning and work from January 1 until May 13th just to pay all your state, federal, and local taxes. It's a travesty. Businesses are fleeing this state in droves. We've had a net loss of population as a result. Things are bad and they're getting worse. There's special interest groups here in town or here in the state of Connecticut that are concerned. The Second Amendment seems to be under attack. Regulations, taxation, the poor are pitted against the rich. Minorities are pitted against everyone else. The cities, the inner cities, are pitted against the suburbs. This state is in crisis, and many believe, especially the people on this panel, that a change is called for. So this evening, I just want to start out first by welcoming you all and thanking you very much for making the trip out here at night. I know it's not an easy studio to find. And I just want to ask each one of these candidates, starting with Joe, if you can just answer the question, why are you running for governor? Joe? Martha, you're the most recent addition to the race for governor.
I am, but the longest running to try to get the state changed at the statewide level. I first was in 2002 was the Republican nominee for Attorney General in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And then in 2010, I was again the Republican nominee for Attorney General. I had a hard-fought convention and won that. Then I had a hard-fought primary against someone well-known, and I won that 61 to 39%. And then I had a hard-fought general election, and I won that 44% statewide in Connecticut in what's considered a blue state as a conservative Republican. Mm. And I did that taking no public money, running no TV ads, and running no attack ads whatsoever. Mm. So it can be done. And this year we're setting out to do it. But I got into the race because I have heard the people of Connecticut loud and clear. And they say, we're taxed too much, the state spends too much, we feel that the state infringes on our rights too much, and we are just done. We're done going to the Capitol and standing in line with thousands of people to try to get our legislature to hold public hearings and listen to us. We are done, whether it's guns or assisted suicide or whatever it might be, Common Core. We are done with secret laws being passed in secret by our Connecticut legislature. If things are good, they can be done in the open. They can be done in public hearings. So clearly that's a sign that what's being done to us is not good for us, because otherwise we would agree to it willingly. We are at risk in Connecticut of killing the goose that lays the golden eggs, and that goose is freedom. It's liberty, because when people have freedom, they're suddenly ingenious, they're hardworking, they're productive, they're happy, and that lifts everybody up. So we're in a very serious situation here, and I have had a plan for a long time on how to fix Connecticut, and I really feel that Connecticut is at the point where they're ready to hear of a new direction and to make changes that are needed.
Thank you. I'm going to start. There was an article in Forbes magazine by Jim Powell, and the article was titled, the title of the article is painful. How did rich Connecticut morph into one of America's worst performing economies? And then for about 20 pages, he delineates the economy in Connecticut, how it's lowest in job growth, how there's been a net loss of population, how the unemployment is continuing at a high rate. My question to each of you is, what are you going to do as governor to turn around the economy in Connecticut? What's your plan? Martha, what are you going to do when you're governor?
Let me just say, first of all, I appreciate what Mayor Boughton has done in Danbury. It's impressive, and we need great mayors. And we have another great mayor in Shelton, Mark Loretti, who couldn't be here tonight. And when you asked what Mr. Boughton's going to bring to, Mayor Boughton's going to bring to Hartford, I was thinking, boy, he could fix Hartford like he did Danbury. Because it's a city that's suffering terribly. It's one of the worst cities. Just the income gap is incredible between the rest of the state. But in short, here's a story that really highlights what's happening in Connecticut. I ran into a friend recently, an older man who went through an RCIA program with me. I hadn't seen him in several years. And I asked him what he was doing, and he said he'd just finished taking a class in entrepreneurship and starting your own business. And an attorney friend of mine who's a business lawyer had taught it. I'm an attorney, I have my own practice. This woman used to teach at a large firm. And she's not in my political party, she's on the other side. And she really liked the idea that this man had for starting a business. And he told me that the number one piece of advice that she gave him and gave the whole class, even though she's on the other political party and she's a brilliant attorney, she said, do not start your business in Connecticut.
Ouch.
That was her number one piece of advice.
Yeah.
She said, do not start your business in Connecticut. So policies have implications. Who we elect has implications. And it's not just that businesses aren't tied down here, individuals aren't tied down to this state. They can leave, and they're leaving in droves. So many people who worked on my 2010 campaign are gone. They support me from other states, but they're gone. And there are so many people who have written to me and said, Martha, now that we just heard that you're running, and that has given us the first hope in years about Connecticut, and we're thinking of staying. And even people who have left have said, we've written on Facebook, they've written personal messages that we just heard you're running, and we're actually now thinking of coming back. That's very complimentary, but the fact is that decisions and leadership have implications, and we have to address that. But I would disagree with Mayor Boughton on one point. Oh, actually on 2 points. One is that I don't believe we can I used to just point at the governor and point at the legislature and blame them. And I really have spent a lot of years thinking about what's wrong with Connecticut. And I truly believe that it's not Governor Malloy's fault, much as many people would like me to say it is. And it's not Governor Rell's fault, as much as other people might want me to say that. And it's not even John Rowland's fault, as much as many people would like me to say that, given the way he's been on WTIC with me on his show. But the fact is that it's not their fault, because in America, we elect leaders from the people. And the people are us. They reflect our values. And when we elect leadership, that leadership reflects our values. Maybe not mine personally, but the majority of people in Connecticut. And the values are spend too much, borrow too much, spend too much time reading gossip or listening to gossip and watching trash TV, rather than reading the timeless wisdom that has always guided
kind of like
mankind.
The Ellen DeGeneres Show, which our president was on.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a serious values issue here. And when we, a few years ago, or actually it was in 2012, I was very ill and I thought I might be dying of something. And I Googled what it might be with my symptoms. And I would say, don't ever do that. That's a bad thing to do. It will scare you. But I realized that if I had any of these conditions, that the cost of the testing, as a small business owner, I have my own law firm, the cost of the testing would have been prohibitive. I couldn't do it. So I decided the one thing I could do was go out and buy a pair of tennis shoes and bike shorts and start biking to work. And I did that for a week, and then a friend said, 5 months of the year, actually pretty nice, Martha. So then I did it for 5 months, and I called my clients, told them they'd see me in bike shorts, and I got healthy. Well, the state of Connecticut, we, the citizens, need to get healthy. We need to get our physical health back. We need to get our moral, spiritual health back. We need to get our connections with our families back and return mothers and fathers to the home where they can raise their own kids with home businesses. But I've proposed eliminating the income tax, eliminating public sector unions, honoring current commitments to public employees, but eliminating those unions over time, eliminating the income tax over time, again, evaluating very seriously nuclear energy and getting that back in Connecticut. It can be done safely. Water cooling is less safe than gas cooling. Gas is very cheap, and the rest of the world does it safely. We can do it safely and create cheap power here. There are many things that we can do. We need to get rid of Common Core. When you take the cities out of our educational system, we have one of the finest educational systems in the world. We don't need to change it. We don't need to be common. We need to be uncommon, uncommonly inventive, uncommonly entrepreneurial, uncommonly charitable. That's what Americans are.
Martha, the question, what are some distinctive issues or things about you that you bring vis-a-vis the other candidates, not just but also the other ones?
Yeah, let me first go back to the New York Times reporter who typical of the New York Times, they start with a premise that's false, and that was that I was criticizing Malloy or the legislature. I said exactly the opposite, that it's not the responsibility of these politicians, because it's our responsibility. We keep electing them. They reflect our values. We need to change our values and decide we're going to spend less, borrow less, make government do only what it's supposed to do and make it do it well, and stop infringing on citizens' core constitutional rights. When we decide as a people to do that, we'll elect good candidates who can do that. So that's first, to correct the record with the New York Times. Secondly, what distinguishes...
That sounds so a feat, you know. Okay.
Second, I'm an attorney, and I live my values through the practice, my legal practice. Many lawyers take on whatever case comes in the door. I don't. I turn away a lot of business. I do constitutional law. I've taken on, for the Roger Sherman Liberty Center, I've challenged the state and Governor Malloy over the balanced budget amendment. I am currently part of a national legal team that is challenging the post-Newtown firearms law, and I'd be happy to speak about that. And the idea is that that case is going to be going all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, probably along with the New York SAFE Act case. So I live my values through my work. And where my values came from was from my family. I grew up in Vermont. And here's an example of what they taught me and what we need to be teaching in our schools, and especially in the urban areas, because this empowers people. This is how you teach people to be able to raise themselves up in life. At age 6, I wanted a horse. I sat on my parents' bed and begged for a long time. My older sister was sitting there, my parents were there. And this is really indicative of how other countries think about rights. My oldest sister said, no, she can't have a horse because I don't have one. Now, who does that remind you of? Maybe the Soviet Union.
I've heard a chicken in every pot, but you're suggesting a horse in every stall?
My mother said she can't have one because no one in the family has ever had a horse. We don't know about horses. That sounds sort of like Great Britain. Stay in your place, you can't rise out of your rank. And my father said, who's an inventor and a professor of engineering, said, you know, Martha, we're not going to give you a horse. We have 5 kids, and I'm a professor and inventor. But I'll tell you, I'll teach you how to get one on your own. So from age 6 to age 11, I followed his plan. I got jobs mowing with a non-power mower, a push mower, babysitting, et cetera. And at the age of 11, I bought my own horse for $550. The first day I rode it...
What was the horse's name?
Benji.
Benji.
Little
Okay,
Ben.
sorry.
He was a very small horse because he cost $550. But the first day I ever rode him, he bucked me off. I came down, went up high, came down, was paralyzed from the neck down because my back bent the wrong way with 3 compressed vertebrae. My father called and said, the hospital, and said to my mother, dear, sell the damn horse. And my mother said, no, honey, you told her she had to buy it for herself, and it's now hers to decide whether to keep it or sell it. So she understood property rights. My father understood give a man a fish, teach a man to fish, right. Don't give him a fish. And that's what we need to do with our students, because if we teach them...
You broke your neck or your back and you were paralyzed, but you got better?
Yes, I was paralyzed from the neck down for about a day and a half. I had 3 compressed vertebrae, was laid up for a long time.
All right.
But came back to go on to be
excellent
rider, competitive rider.
Well, thanks so much. We have a caller. Caller, do you have a question for the candidates?
I do have a question. The issue right now on the top of people's minds is Common Core. What would each of the candidates do if it came down to get rid of Common Core? Would also have to disentangle federal money that's attached to it. How far are they willing to go?
Excellent
to
question.
Get rid of Common Core?
Excellent question. Thank you.
We will not keep our standards, our educational standards, in place. Thank you.
Right. Martha, you mentioned that in your opening statement, but Joe?
But what's going to happen is that these parents who are very angry about Common Core are going to pull their kids out of the system. They're going to pull them out of the public schools and homeschool them. And homeschooling, people who don't know about homeschooling, and I have lots of friends in the homeschooling movement, and they go from inner city to suburb. They go from minimally educated to highly educated. I mean, for example, George Gilder under Reagan homeschooled his own kids with his family, and there's a family in Avon, 5 kids, and they lead a whole homeschooling movement in Connecticut at a very high end. Parents will pull their kids out, and then these school districts are going to fold. They're going to fold because they're expensive. They have to be supported by taxpayers. And when parents pull their kids out of the public school system, they don't need to live in expensive towns. A homeschooling family doesn't need to live in Avon. They can move to the hills of Bloomfield, which are just gorgeous, right next door, where there's a poorer performing school system. They can live there, pay lower taxes, not pay for a fancy school, and be in the same area without paying for the taxes of Avon. So these schools in that are excellent right now in Connecticut are going to fold because the taxpayers are going to walk. They're going to walk out of state. They're going to walk to other towns where there are lower taxes, and there won't be the tax base to pay for them. So I see this, it's not just the sucking sound of people quickly exiting the state for jobs. It's the sucking sound of parents pulling their kids out of these school systems and making other decisions, because homeschooling is so much easier now. Don't think of families alone in their home, without anyone around. I judge Shakespeare contests for homeschoolers. Lots of families come together, and I've taught them judge speech contests and that sort of thing. They do very sophisticated programs. Families get together, and they have really well-educated kids who go on to top universities.
Okay, we're in the lightning round. Jim?
Just one more. The word union has been mentioned a bunch of times here tonight. Connecticut has kind of this rich history of manufacturing and unions. But there's two kinds of unions. There's public sector unions and there's private sector unions. And in this state, government union employees now outnumber private union employees. And so just wondered what you think the impact of that has been on the state, even on the political process. Dan Malloy didn't win as a Democrat last time, right? He won as a Democrat and a working families. And I assume some of those working families may be public sector union members. So what's your take on the public sector unions, the growth of that sector, and how it impacts the state, and what can be done, if anything, about it?
Joe, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, first of all, unions have played a very important role in the history of our country, and I support unions absolutely. They're very important. But private sector unions are very different from public sector unions, and public sector unions, we were warned by both FDR and JFK, would take down this country, take it down financially. Because once they have their hands on the power to get the kinds of salaries that they want, that go to the unions to lobby for more power and more salaries, you can't stop that vicious cycle, because it elects politicians, and the politicians, as Mayor Boughton pointed out, who are elected that way, they will not shut down the unions. So I have said, honor the existing obligations, but over time phase out public sector unions in Connecticut altogether. Other states have done it, and it just lifts the economy out. I mean, imagine if, and as I said, as a lawyer, I litigate my values, and I'm litigating a case right now, a class action, against a state public sector union as local counsel for the National Right to Work Foundation. It's that important.
We're going to go to the close in just a minute. We're going to go in reverse order. You'll have a minute and a half to look into that camera and tell everyone why you want to be the next governor. Just before that, lightning round. First off, we have a return phone call from the New York Times writer who's going to speak very quickly. Very quickly.
You still haven't answered his first question. I just want to know that for the record.
Yes, firstly, I'd like
quickly,
to,
Eric, please.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I'd like to cast my ballot for Ms. Dean for the Director of Morals for this state. But seriously.
Quickly, Eric, please.
The 800-pound gorilla who's not in the room, Mr. Foley. How do you three differentiate yourselves from him?
Okay, hold on one second. Give me a quick answer to that one question, one sentence answer between you and Dick Foley.
Well, we went to the same high school.
Tom Foley. Sorry.
We went to the same high school, Phillips Academy. So that's a similarity. But the difference is that I'm broke and broken like the rest of Connecticut, and Tom Foley's not.
Now we're going to go to the closing sections, and if we time this out right, you have a minute to look in the camera and tell people, and we'll start with you, Martha, and go right down the line.
My name's Martha Dean, and I'm running for governor because I've heard loud and clear from the people of Connecticut that they are overtaxed, the state spends too much, the state infringes on their private sphere and on their constitutional rights too much. My background is I'm an attorney. As I said earlier, I litigate my values. I've litigated the budget cap in Connecticut, or for the Roger Sherman Liberty Center. I'm litigating against public sector unions currently for the National Right to Work Foundation, although I agree with private sector unions. I think they serve a valuable purpose, and we should honor our commitments to public sector union employees. I also am litigating the case on behalf of the group that's challenging the post-Newtown firearms law. It is critical that we stop our state from infringing on Second Amendment rights. So as your governor, I pledge to end the income tax over time, to end public sector unions while honoring current employees, to bring in, to make sure that government does what it's supposed to do and nothing more, and that it stops infringing on core rights and interfering in citizens' lives. Thank you very much.
Boughton. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. I want to thank the candidates. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. I have no idea what we're doing next week, but that's why I got 6 days to figure it out. Thanks for joining us, and vote for one of these guys. I think they're great. Good night.